Eat your word. Who is the number one apostle? We're doing a little bit of a different video today, so I thought we could use some help. Ta-da!
I'm Cecily.
This is Cecily, my wife. We're going to be ranking the apostles today, having a little fun, not taking it too seriously. There's definitely some surprises along the way, so you're going to want to watch till the end. So, who do we have on our list?
I'm here to do this thing, but I have no idea. Go.
Kicking things off with the original hype man of the apostles. Seriously, without Andrew, Peter might have been fishing forever. He's the first follower of Jesus. He introduced Peter to Jesus. He's often overshadowed by his brother, but he remains pretty humble. Tradition holds that he preached in modern day Ukraine and Russia, which is pretty cool. And because he really introduced everybody first to Jesus, he was the first one, we're going to give him a rating of S. He was probably the, hey, I introduced you guys at every party.
Next up, the guy who was skeptical about small towns, Bartholomew. Because honestly, who hasn't judged a place by its Yelp reviews? We give Bartholomew or Nathanael an A. His success was that he recognized Jesus as the Son of God early on. However, he was initially skeptical about Nazareth. He was believed to have preached in India, bringing the gospel that far east. And he's probably the person who Googles restaurant reviews before agreeing to dinner. That's, who doesn't do that?
Who doesn't? Right. Overanalyzing everything. We got to research it. And next up we have James, and no, not that James that you're thinking, the other James, the blink and you'll miss him James. I gave James a rating of A, James, son of Alphaeus. And that's because he's basically anonymous, no standout moments. He's faithfully following Jesus, even though he doesn't get a lot of recognition. And that humility led me to put him in A. He probably was the introvert of the group. He was chill but mysterious. He's understood to be James the Lesser, not because he's a less good apostle, but just because he was younger or shorter, maybe smaller than the others. He was travel size.
Speaking of James, here's the louder one. Thunder Squad Captain, and probably the loudest in the group chats. We all have that friend. James, son of Zebedee, we give him a B. He was part of Jesus's inner circle of trust, present at the Transfiguration. He was the first apostle martyred for his faith. However, he asked for a top spot in Jesus's kingdom, kind of awkward with John, showing ambition over understanding. He and his brother John were nicknamed the Sons of Thunder for their boldness. I can't do it. He probably would have tiered himself as a number one.
Yeah, S tier.
Little big-headed there.
I don't know, James. All right, so sliding in with main character energy after James, we have John. Now, if Jesus had a best friend necklace, one that like is half and half, John would probably be wearing it. The reality is, John said that John is the disciple that Jesus loved. However, he did want to call fire down on a Samaritan village. A little bit of a bummer there, dude.
A little dramatic.
He outlived all the other apostles. He wrote Revelation on the island of Patmos where he was exiled. And he was probably the friend that never lets you forget that, Jesus called me beloved, I'm the one that Jesus loves. Despite all that, because Jesus said you're the disciple that I love, we're going to go with Jesus's rating and give him a rating of S. It's close.
And Ryan gave me Judas for Pete's sake. Now for the plot twist no one wanted. Judas, the friend who brings Monopoly, then flips the board. Judas Iscariot, we give him an F. Should he be on the board? I don't know. He was trusted with the money bag, for a while, until he betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. He was probably just trust me, bro, trust me. But he was a friend who definitely can't be trusted.
Next up, we have a guy from tax tables all the way to parables. Matthew had an apostle glow up. Like going from an IRS agent who's also a terrorist to an inspirational influencer who loves Jesus. Inspirational, guys. He wrote the Gospel of Matthew. He followed Jesus with his whole heart. His gospel connects Jesus to the Old Testament. Despite the negatives of being a tax collector, we're giving him an S. He loved Excel before Excel was cool. And yes, Microsoft Excel is cool.
I'll get you those files before lunch, boss. Paul. He wasn't part of the original squad, but he came in hot. Paul, the guy who switched teams and wrote half the New Testament, we give him an A. Only an A. There's a big reason we didn't give him an S. He did wrote 13 or 14 books of the New Testament. He spread the gospel throughout the Roman Empire, and he shaped Christian theology. Ooh, pretty dope. However, pretty bad. He was persecuting Christians, including approving Stephen's death. He held Roman citizenship, which gave him unique rights, and that helped him travel and spread the gospel widely. He was probably the most improved player award.
Next up is Philip. And Philip, if questions were a love language, Philip would be fluent. Philip, we gave a B because he helped introduce Greeks to Jesus. Early missionary work likely took him to modern day Turkey, which is pretty cool. However, he struggled with understanding Jesus's divine nature and was always asking questions about it. He was probably a little bit annoying to watch movies with. Wait, who's that? Wait, what character is that? Wait, where did they go? Wait, what just happened? He always has to ask these 100 questions.
Like when you watch Lord of the Rings.
If you would just pay attention, you would know the answer to who these characters are.
Who is Tom Bombadil?
You don't need to know if you just pay attention. Anyway.
What?
Don't be Philip.
Is he?
Okay.
You can't have a squad without the chaotic bestie. Peter, known for his bold moves and big swings and bigger comebacks, we give him a B.
Uh-oh, that's an upset.
Well, I don't totally agree with it. He was the leader of the apostles. He was the first to declare Jesus as the Messiah. He preached at Pentecost. He did deny Jesus 3 times and he was rebuked by Jesus for misunderstanding.
Yeah, Jesus even said, "Get behind me, Satan."
Yeah, Peter is the only apostle that we know had a wife, which is really cool. Also, he's the only apostle that was renamed the Rock.
Well, Sons of Thunder, maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah, I kind of think he should be an A, but
maybe?
It's up to you. I don't know.
Well,
he wasn't persecuting Christians like Paul.
Maybe more like this.
This feels wrong to do. We're rating the apostles.
All right.
Peter was probably a gym rat. Always jumping off boats, walking on water, trying to. Swinging swords, probably pretty ripped. His wife probably loved it.
Next up is Simon the Zealot. He went from plotting revolutions to preaching peace. Character development at its finest. Simon was super passionate, loved following the rules, really a stickler for prophecy and theology. He left a radical political movement to follow Jesus. He might have struggled to grasp Jesus' real mission. That was peaceful. He probably had strong opinions on everything. Like, we are overthrowing Rome today or else. It's like, Simon, chill out.
And here's Thaddeus. Wait, who exactly? The most underrated player in the game. Thaddeus, Jude, son of James. We rate him as an A. He asked a lot of thoughtful questions, but he was often forgotten due to limited mention. Tradition suggests he preached in places like Syria and Persia. We really know nothing about him.
Yeah.
He was probably the guy everyone's called, "Hey, you," because they all forgot his name.
Poor guy.
Why are we giving him an A if we know nothing about him?
Because he was probably humble. He didn't need to be recognized. All right.
Yeah, I'm sure he was great, but
we'll have a little discussion.
Can't wait to meet you, Thad.
Can't wait to meet you, Thad. All right.
Put you as a B.
Finally, Thomas, the man, the myth, the meme, Pics or didn't happen energy. He needed evidence for everything. He committed boldly to die with Jesus, which is pretty cool. He famously really heavily doubted the resurrection of Jesus, which is a big deal. We're going to put him in C for that reason. Tradition says that he traveled as far as India, which is pretty cool, where Christian communities actually trace their roots to him. He was probably the Pics or it didn't happen guy, ultimate skeptic vibes. And so let's look at this list. All right. So we have Andrew, John, and Matthew top tier. So the furthest left is the top. I would say because of Jesus's own rating, John is number 1. I'm going to put John, and then I'm going to put Matthew, and then Andrew. You think that's fair?
Yeah.
What do you think about this A tier here? Nathanael?
Paul.
James or Paul being... Oh.
And then Peter. Peter and Paul.
Do you think Paul here?
And Peter, Paul, and Mary.
So Paul, then Peter?
Puff the magic dragon.
So Paul, Peter, Nathanael, and then James?
It's fine.
I might actually put James down here.
Okay.
So Thad is B, high up on the B. Philip is after that. James is after that. Simon and Thomas are kind of at the bottom here because they were both doubting Jesus, asking questions.
This is just for fun, guys.
And Judas we're putting as an F tier.
Take him off.
Yeah, actually.
Take him out.
You know what? Maybe we should just delete that. All right. All right.
But okay, then we get into theology discussion. He was a crucial player. Was his heart hardened? Did Jesus use an already hardened heart?
Yeah, thankfully, we don't have to answer those.
That's a different video.
They're fun to talk about for sure. All right. Well, hopefully you agree. And if you disagree, let us know in the comments below. Obviously, this was just for fun.
First and last video. See y'all.
Adios.
Eat your word.